Okay, here's a wild thought for you. What if the modern American distrust of government wasn't really born in 1776, but way, way back in 1066? We're about to dive into a really provocative theory that says the DNA of our politics today can be traced back to a single bloody battle and a massive 800-year-long vendetta that it might have kicked off.
Right, so this is the core idea from our source. I know, sociobiological path is a real mouthful, but what it's saying is actually pretty explosive. The argument is that in 1066, the entire English-speaking world was, well, violently knocked onto a totally different track in history. The theory goes that this one single event created a wound so deep you can still see the scar tissue today, right in the heart of American politics.
So it all starts right here, the Battle of Hastings, 1066. Now, according to this theory, you gotta understand, this wasn't just a simple transfer of power from one king to another. No, this was a full-blown conquest that literally created a permanent ethnic class system. This event established what's been called the Norman yoke. And the idea is pretty brutal. You had a foreign, French-speaking master race, that's the Normans, brutally slammed on top of a native, conquered slave race, the Anglo-Saxons. And just like that, you get this rigid, two-tiered society. It really wasn't just about a new king. On one side, you've got the Norman conquerors. They're the new aristocracy, the rulers by birthright. And on the other side, the native Anglo-Saxons. They're now the subjugated, the conquered people. This deep ethnic divide is basically the engine for the entire 800-year conflict that's about to unfold. And the humiliation? Well, it was immediate and it was total. A chronicler writing around that time put it just so bluntly. He said it became a disgrace to be called an Englishman. Can you imagine? Your very identity suddenly became a mark of shame, of being one of the defeated. So what happens to all that anger and resentment? Does it just fade away? Well, according to this theory, not a chance. It just goes underground. It becomes this secret, hidden engine that drives centuries of revolution. In this timeline, this is where the theory gets really ambitious. It takes all these major historical events that we usually think of as totally separate, and it weaves them together into one long story. The English Civil War, the American Revolution, even the American Civil War. Suddenly, they're all just different chapters in a single epic struggle, the Anglo-Saxon reconquest against their Norman masters. And here's the crucial part. This wasn't just about shiny new ideas of liberty. For thinkers like Thomas Jefferson, the American Revolution was about getting something back. It was about reclaiming something ancient he believed was stolen, the original Saxon laws that were crushed by the Normans almost 800 years before. Okay, now we get to the theory's big climax, the American Civil War. In this telling of history, the war between the North and the South wasn't just about slavery or states' rights. No, it was the ultimate, final reversal of the 1066 conquest. It was the final Battle of Hastings. Now just stop and think about how explosive this is. You had Southern writers like George Fitzhugh who were framing the conflict using these exact terms. They literally identified themselves, the slave-owning cavaliers of the South, as a Norman master race. And the Puritans up north, they saw them as the descendants of Saxon serfs, basically a slave race. It's incredible. And this all leads to this. Well, this mind-bending phrase, the Anglo-Saxon conquest of the conquest. The whole argument is that when the Union won the Civil War, it didn't just end slavery. On this deep, symbolic level, it was the final, ultimate reversal of 1066. It was the triumph of Saxon democracy over Norman aristocracy once and for all. So, where does that leave us? What's the takeaway from all this? Well, the theory doesn't just end the story in 1865. It argues that this epic, 800-year-long conflict created a totally unique and deeply embedded political psychology that, believe it or not, still defines the Anglo-American world today. The result, supposedly, is a political culture that has some deep, deep battle scars. This theory traces our most basic political instincts, that built-in mistrust of government as them versus us, the way we use rights as a weapon against power, this core belief that the state is somehow unnatural or oppressive. It traces all of it back to that ancient collective trauma of being a conquered people.
And here it is, the final, startling connection. That nagging, persistent anti-government feeling in American culture? In this view, it's the ghost of the Norman yoke. It's the eternalization of an ancient oppression. It's a fear of a conqueror who's been dead for centuries that still haunts our politics today. Look, the theory we've just walked through is sweeping, it's huge, and it's definitely controversial. But it leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. Whether you buy the argument or not, it makes you think, doesn't it? It forces you to wonder just how much our interpretations of the distant past can actually shape and color and maybe even define how we see the world we're living in right now.